This video is an audio recording of our reading group reading and discussing on the correct handling of contradictions among the people, Chapter 7, Overall Consideration and Proper Arrangement. Our reading groups are open to the public, and we encourage discussion of any ideas people bring to the table, but this also means some of the ideas expressed in this discussion might not reflect the actual views of our party on any level. With that said, we hope you enjoy our reading and discussion of Chapter 7, Overall Consideration and Proper Arrangement.
Overall consideration and proper arrangement. By overall consideration, we mean consideration that embraces the 600 million people of our country. In drawing up plans, handling affairs, or thinking over problems, we must proceed from the fact that China has a population of 600 million, and we must never forget this fact. Why do we make a point of this? Is it possible that there are people who are still unaware that we have a population of 600 million? Of course, everyone knows this, but when it comes to actual practice, some people forget all about it and act as though the fewer the people, the smaller the circle, the better. Those who have this small circle mentality abhor the idea of bringing every positive factor into play, of uniting with everyone who can be united with, and of doing everything possible to turn negative factors into positive ones, so as to serve the great cause of building a socialist society. I hope these people will take a wider view and fully recognize that we have a population of 600 million, that this is an objective fact, and that it is an asset for us. Our large population is a good thing, but of course it also involves certain difficulties. Construction is going ahead vigorously on all fronts, and very successfully too, but in the present transition period of tremendous social change, there are still many difficult problems. Progress, and at the same time, difficulties. This is a contradiction. However, not only should all such contradictions be resolved, but they definitely can be. Our guiding principle is overall consideration and proper arrangement. Whatever the problem, whether it concerns food, natural calamities, employment, education, the intellectuals, the united front of all patriotic forces, minority nationalities, or anything else, we must always proceed from the standpoint of overall consideration, which embraces the whole people, and must make the proper arrangement, after consultation with all the circles concerned, in the light of what is feasible at a particular time and place. On no account should we complain that there are too many people, that others are backward, that things are troublesome and hard to handle, and close the door on them. Do I mean to say that the government alone must take care of everyone and everything? Of course not. In many cases, they can be left to the direct care of the public organizations or the masses. Both are quite capable of devising many good ways of handling them. This also comes within the scope of the principle of overall consideration and pro-arrangement. We should give guidance on this to the public organizations and the people everywhere.
Thank you for reading. First question that I have here for everyone. What is meant by small circle mentality? We'll follow this up with what are some examples of small circle mentality we should make sure to avoid in our own situation? And why must we reject small circle mentality and unite with everyone that can be united with? First, what is meant by small circle mentality?
I would presume that this is something to do with kind of formulating policy and things along those lines that's catered to a specific group. You know, it might be industrial workers versus agricultural workers, just as an example.
Yeah. I think the idea of like having your own sort of group that you care about, just everyone else can go away. Just ignoring everyone else. It's like, I don't want to deal with all the problems. It's like the path of least resistance.
Right.
I think in a way that kind of correlates to like, special interest groups. Like instead of taking into account what's going to be best for the kind of utilitarian, do the most good for the most number of people kind of approach to it, small circle mentality would be thinking that it would be better if the number of people involved in the building process, in the decision making, were smaller, because then we can get to decisions more quickly and et cetera, et cetera. And that might feel like it's more productive at times, but the problem is if you're not including everyone who is being affected by the decision, then invariably the decision that gets made is going to leave some people in a worse position, or it's going to weaken group cohesion and all that kind of stuff. So I think by small circle mentality, Mao just means thinking about a smaller group of people as the kind of ideal around which society should revolve.
Yeah. What I said was that small circle mentality is being dogmatic, factionalist, and cliquist. It is only being willing to work within your own small group and refusing to work with others with common interests. This does not mean simply refusing to compromise on things that cannot be compromised on, but refusing to even attempt education and the democratic method of resolving contradictions among the people to work towards eventually uniting. It can also be not taking the opportunity when it exists to create conditions in which a group could actually be incentivized into working with you, but instead simply attempting to eliminate them by force. So, what are some examples of small circle mentality that we should make sure to avoid in our own situation?
The idea that A, the masses are stupid, and B, that as such, the masses need to be led by a small, intelligent group that will do the best for them. When in reality, the masses are not stupid. They might just be uneducated or even unaware.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking of the now infamous basket of deplorables from 9 years ago. This whole idea of just like, well, half the people aren't going to be with us no matter what we do, so screw them.
Closer to home, leftist infighting.
Yeah, definitely.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
I can attest, Brian and I have never had any sort of tense or acrimonious debate about anything ever.
What about examples that we specifically might be in danger of doing and need to pay special attention to make sure that we do not do that?
I was thinking within our own club, especially as we get bigger, to make sure that we don't have just cliques forming where it's just like members who only talk to each other and like never to other people in the club outside of their own clique.
Yeah, that's a very good example.
Especially because we've gotten a few new members recently. So trying to get them incorporated in any way that they are able to be.
I'll just give the first example that I came up with. Not attempting to reach out to other groups with similar goals to attempt to build relations and work together. That would be small circle, just thinking that our group is the only group that is doing anything worthwhile and that we're on our own leading the struggle.
Yeah.
That it's not the case. There's plenty of other groups out there that are doing very good work.
It's not even pragmatic. Like you're just making it harder for yourself.
Yeah. What about when it comes to comrades that might have mistaken ideas?
I would say it depends on what those ideas are and why they hold those ideas. If it is just genuinely they're confused or they're uneducated or that's lingering, bourgeois high school education and college education, such as it is in this country, you can still keep trying to work with them and go through the whole unity, criticism, unity, just trying to go through that with them. I would say that if it just turns out that they're just a liberal and they have absolutely no interest in doing any of that, that's different. Then, you can't let that person be a member of our group because they have fundamentally different values and goals than ours. But if it's the first case, I would say not rushing to like denounce them or put them on blast or openly criticize them and pick a fight with them. Just deal with it through the appropriate channels, whatever those are, according to the situation at hand.
Yeah. And we use that attempting unity, criticism, unity, to determine whether they are genuine and they do desire unity.
Right.
So condemning comrades who are merely mistaken and not actively spreading outright dangerous and harmful ideas as deviationists without even attempting to use the democratic method of resolving contradictions among the people.
I would also say giving up in engaging with sections of the working class that aren't already on our side that we're finding to be particularly perhaps difficult or stubborn about trying to create dialogue and build
Yeah.
community with them.
Yeah, that's actually my final example. Regarding and treating working class people who have been captured by fascist rhetoric as irreconcilable enemies, rather than using those of us least in danger from fascists to try to reach them to deprogram them. In reality, it is only the bourgeois leaders of the fascist movement that would actually benefit from fascism and are the only ones that are truly and irreconcilably enemies of the people. Of course, in moments of fascist attack, we must defend ourselves. This only applies during the downtime outside of those moments. Any comments before we move on to why we must reject small circle mentality? All right. So why must we reject small circle mentality and unite with everyone that can be united with?
I've just been thinking of combat liberalism.
Yeah.
This feels like an addendum to that.
Mm-hmm. You want to explain why for anyone that might not have
I mean, it just feels like a liberal thing to like you're putting these sort of artificial doing this like artificial categorization of people for like why you can or cannot work with them.
Mm-hmm.
It feels to me very much like small circle mentality is Mao's name for the whole bourgeois tactic of divide and conquer the working class. Like if you're just trying to get all the straight white men in a circle and all of the women in a circle and all of the black people in a circle and all the immigrants in a circle, and they're all just busy fighting each other instead of uniting into one big circle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's pretty self-evident why we as communists, we as the proletariat are never going to get anything done if we count ourselves in the hundreds or even thousands. Like you need the masses behind you, and you don't do that by dividing everyone up into a circle.
Yeah. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's pretty much like he said, the strength in numbers and unity, and the fact that if you start factionalizing like that, it makes it very easy for the bosses and everything to turn you against each other. It's the classic, back in the day, a lot of the unions were white people only, and the bosses were like, yeah, you don't want, those other people, in your union, do you? And then as soon as they went on strike, the bosses were like, okay, well, we're bringing in those other people to work while you're on strike.
Mm-hmm. What I had down here was the more enemies we have, the more difficult the struggle. The more difficult the struggle, the greater the hardships on the people. We struggle and fight for the people, not to subject them to unnecessary difficulty. Pretty much covers what you were saying. We want to unite with as many people as we can. Dividing us is what the bourgeoisie do to keep us down. And then I also mentioned that small circle mentality will also inevitably lead to wrongly treating sections of the people as enemies, which divorces us from the masses. Any other comments on small circle mentality? All right. How can we encourage public organizations and the masses to participate in resolving contradictions among people, as Mao mentioned at the end of that chapter?
He expresses faith in the ability of smaller more local communities to handle a lot of the daily minutia on their own. So I would think just kind of empowering them to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Whether it's making sure that they have the resources or making sure that they are free from harassment from outside forces that want to stop them, whether that's material or intellectual support, just make sure that all the communities have the ability to actually solve their own problems.
How do we make sure that the masses and the public organizations work on coming together to resolve these contradictions among themselves without government input, rather than just breaking down and fighting each other?
would say you'd want to show them that it's in their best interests to work together and that they, in fact, come out stronger and better off by trying to resolve those contradictions.
Sure.
I was just going to say education and just teaching people that, other people are not your competition.
Exactly. Yes.
You can do better things together if you work together.
I was going to say Mao calls it overall consideration, but I read that as like collectivism, as in like working to engender in people a sense of community and collection, as
Yeah.
opposed to, the phrase we hear all the goddamn time now, and which I absolutely hate, this phrase of get your bag. Like, screw what happens to other people. You are responsible to yourself and yourself only. Like, no. We're all responsible to each other. That's not to say that you can't have a private life. You can't, I struggle with this sometimes myself in my own thinking. Like, in a way, even small actions that you take can have an impact outside of just your immediate circle. But people are also entitled to their own private lives. So it's not about stripping away all privacy and declaring everything to now be a matter of public concern. But you got to pull back from this extreme that we're in now in, stage 4 terminal capitalism, of just making it feel like as long as you take care of yourself, that's all that really matters. No, you have to engage in overall consideration so that hopefully one group, if they're like, well, we would like to do X, but doing X has negative knock-on effects for these other groups. So instead of doing X, we'll do Y, which gets us most of what we need, et cetera, et cetera. Like finding the balance and encouraging the group, the large circle, to consider that balance for everyone and not try to tip too far towards their own end goals at the cost of the health and the benefit of the overall group.
Mm-hmm. You all touched on education a good bit. That is very important. I also felt that it was important to make sure that there was a place for people to come together and have these discussions to work things out amongst themselves. Because if there's not really that place, then they might just stick to their own bubble and resort to small circle mentality and end up just clashing with each other. So what I said was we must educate the masses on the democratic method for resolving contradictions among the people and provide forums for this to be carried out. As long as objectively false information is actively and diligently countered in some way, this will allow the masses to come to the correct conclusions and resolutions on their own. Resolving things in this way also ensures the masses themselves understand exactly why that decision is correct, because they actively participated in developing that decision collectively. Anything else to add?
The more I think about it, the more it's like, oh, our society now for the last 50 years has been doing the exact opposite of all of this. We've just been dividing ourselves into smaller and smaller circles and refusing to engage in overall consideration and, look at the hell that it hath wrought. Collective misery, I don't think has ever been so high in the history of our society or culture.
Yeah.
The Great Depression was probably pretty bad too, but
People had each other at that time, like they were fighting against it.
Right. And you had like labor unions and you had like you still had like community functions.
It might have been Noam Chomsky talking about living through the Great Depression and like how like it was different. It was worse economically and like you just deprivation wise, but like it wasn't as hopeless feeling as what we have.
like loneliness epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. We should provide spaces, but if I could wave my wand, I would want to provide actual physical spaces in the real world. like online has its use, but if you're going to embark on a massive overhaul of society and, trying to raise mass consciousness and everything, I don't think there's any substitute for actually having people in a big room or a park or somewhere together where they can actually all see each other and, interact directly.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you for the discussion. We'll move on to the next chapter.
Thank you for watching this recording of our reading group, and thank you to everyone that attended. We hope you got something out of this. If you enjoyed this video and want to attend a reading group live, feel free to reach out to us via email at milwaukee@cpusa.org, DM us on any of our social media pages, or just come say hi to us at any event we're attending. Our reading groups are hybrid meetings with both in-person and virtual options, and we'd love to see more of the community attend in whatever form they can. Solidarity, everyone, and see you next time with Chapter 8 on Let 100 Flowers Blossom, Let 100 Schools of Thought Contend, and Long-Term Coexistence and Mutual Supervision.